If I were not a filmmaker, it's so funny. I feel like I love traveling. Probably would be doing something in the travel industry, or maybe I would be an architect. Those are the two things that I love very much.
So maybe like a food blogger or
No, I don't know. I don't know
no.
about that. I don't know about that.
We sat down with director Leo Jiang, whose short documentary Island in Between was nominated for Best Short Documentary at the 96th Oscars.
All of my films up till now have not been about the Taiwanese community. I made films about the Vietnamese American community. I made films in China. I made a film in the Philippines. It's only these last few years that I feel like I need to focus my energy and invest my time more towards Taiwanese stories. Feels important right now, and maybe it's because of where I am in my life and how I ended up back in Taiwan after 30 plus years in the US that, I'm glad that I can contribute, use my experience, use my storytelling skills to tell Taiwanese stories. I feel like ultimately this is a film about identity, and this is a film about finding a sense of belonging and how that evolves, and also about how the borders and the boundaries are not as black and white as a lot of people perceive it to be, especially outsiders who are not directly involved. People always think, oh, you're either on my side or your side, right? It's very simplistic, if you will. And I personally think that that's the root of a lot of problems in the world today. I do feel like my career, all my work has been about, exploring people and the situation on the margins and then present the complexity of it, that to show how, what the gray area feels like, to show how, the world is not that simple, that we all sort of struggle, and maybe the struggle is a positive thing because then we're less likely to have these knee-jerk reactions about good and evil and about, one side versus the other. So, I think ultimately I would love, people to continue to feel resonant, that this film resonate with their own personal story somehow. On the identity side, on the sense of belonging side, which you don't have to be Taiwanese, you don't have to know the situation here to understand that. I think we all, have this struggle no matter where you are.
This is Carol Dysinger, director of Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone If You're a Girl, which won Best Documentary Short Subject at the 92nd Oscars. She had recently shot a short documentary in Taiwan called Come Hungry, and she shared her thoughts about Leo's new film.
With Leo's movie, Island in Between, because of the nature of America's relationship to Taiwan and to mainland China, you hear about the politics of it, and of all that stuff, but you never really get a sense of what it feels like to be in Taiwan. And I think that for me was what drove a lot of my decisions about Come Hungry. It was like, this is what it's like to be here. And I think Leo managed to do that in an almost historical context, with the with all the objects left over from all that material. You sort of get not just the experience of being there in the moment, but the experience of being Taiwanese with a history. And I think it was and still meeting people and standing on the beach and looking at China and sort of, it's the feeling of being there, which is what you want in a documentary. But what Leo pulled off was the feeling of being there with the history in your body, which is very rare. So I think he did a really lovely job of making a love poem, but without sentimentality, in a way that I think a lot of, because the documentary branch is who votes on what shorts get nominated. We'll see what the whole Academy says. But that's an honor from the documentary branch, which means people really acknowledge what he pulled off.
The way that New York Times op docs work is they tend to partner with films through acquisition, right? They come in fairly late and they basically pick up the film and launch it. Had some feedback, we go back and forth for a couple months, and then they say, yeah, like we're gonna come on board. And actually, sort of from then on, the timeline went really fast. I mean, that happened in August, maybe. And then by end of September, we had qualified for the Academy Awards. By December, it was launched on their website, and then, you know, on YouTube, and then, I mean, here we are. So, yeah, it's been really great. I sort of now love the short documentary form. The comments on the New York Times page, I think initially it was really about the film, people reacting to the approach of the film, sort of the personal, emotional angle of the film, and some mentioned their own backgrounds, either them as Taiwanese or Taiwanese in diaspora, or even people from other cultures that might have similar political backdrop, like, you know, Cuba or Korea or Eastern Europe. You know, it was actually really great and interesting to see them find ways to relate to the story through their own history. On YouTube, I think the comments have been pretty overwhelmingly positive, from people appreciating the imagery. There obviously also controversial comments. I think people just wanted a platform to speak their opinions about Taiwan or China or US. And I think that's fine. I feel like that's one of the goals for having a film like this, is to stimulate conversation.
My advice to Leo and to other people is, like, look at the list of nominees and decide who you want to talk to and go find them. And then, you know, when the day comes, it's like everything you've dreamed of, and suddenly you're in a high school play version of everything you've dreamed of. It's like, you know, it's like the red carpet when you're actually on it is just, it's just not what you think. And it's like anything in life. You know, you dream of it, but when you get there, it's ordinary.